America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored.
And it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free.
This is America's Voice Live.
And welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gurley.
The pulse of the people.
We need somebody that's going to hear the people's voice.
The truth the mainstream won't touch.
This guy is, by definition, a globalist.
And the stories that matter.
Rav's own Ben Bergquam.
Right up over this hill, we got armed cartel. I see him.
Live.
Breaking news right now here on Real America's Voice.
Unfiltered.
These people are domestic terrorists.
And unapologetic.
We're here to take a stand for God and country. Does feel good, doesn't it?
America's Voice Live starts now.
All right, welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of June. Let's get to the day's top stories. And as always, thank you for joining me here today. A special edition of America's Voice Live coming to you from Washington. First, a bill introduced by Congressman Tom Barrett of Michigan aims to restore education benefits to service members who were discharged for not taking the COVID vaccine. Congressman Barrett will join me here live to discuss the details. Also, in Chicago, parents clash at a school board meeting after a transgender athlete wins multiple events. Some cities still hanging on to the idea that being a man in a woman's sport doesn't give an unfair advantage. Details on that. Plus, later, the FBI's Assistant Director, Dan Bongino, has announced an investigation into the city of Seattle after Mayor Bruce Harrell painted Christian groups as violent protesters. All the updates and details coming your way today on America's Voice Live. But first, I want to start here today. Reports from John Solomon's JustTheNews.com shows that the FBI is conducting a multi-city investigation into potential criminal cover-ups related to COVID-19 on 3 separate occasions. The investigation is focusing on 3 areas: the virus's origins, destruction of federal records, and manipulation of vaccine approval processes. Evidence includes emails from federal scientists attempting to hide discussions about COVID-19 and the vaccines, and indications that the virus may have emerged earlier than officially acknowledged. The probe, active in cities like Cleveland, New York, and Baltimore, follows a court ruling that China concealed the virus's origins in recent congressional findings. Take a look at what Chris Pihota had to say on Just the News. No noise about what's going on behind the scenes.
I think right now what you're looking at is a national platform investigation, as we used to call it, where you have several field offices are going to take different parts of very large investigative approaches. And as you broke it down into those 3 areas, you'll have those 3 offices that'll each take an area, because they're very broad and broad investigative areas, right? And what they'll do is they'll issue investigative leads to other field offices as the investigative effort matures and we start looking more deeply into things. And they're going to see, basically, were any laws broken? How are the ethics of these situations used to possibly, make decisions or substitute political views for proper decision making and maybe not, they weren't looking out for the welfare and well-being of the American people so much as to support their own political beliefs or possibly, profit-driven motives. So the FBI is going to look into those things, and then with the Department of Justice, see where there could possibly be some corrective action taken or possibly some legal action.
All right, so here with me to discuss this further, the host of Just the News, No Noise, John Solomon. John, nice to see you today, and I want to get to all of that. It's fascinating reporting coming from Just the News, as you often put out there, but I have to start with Elon Musk today, calling the big, beautiful bill a disgusting abomination is one of the things he said about it, basically saying that anybody that voted for this thing should be ashamed of themselves. The White House pushing back, as you can expect, but you've got some other news on this front as well, don't you?
Yeah, listen, I think Elon Musk is trying to give an old-fashioned kick in the derriere to the Senate to try to get them to cut more spending out of this bill. When you add $3 trillion of spending to the government's annual budget over the last 5 or 6 years, and you only cut less than $200 billion a year back, you're at a net loss, and that deficit becomes bigger and bigger, and Standard & Poor's and Moody's start warning about our our fiscal health and interest rates are higher than the prime rate because lenders are more afraid about the country's borrowing capabilities, you're in a crisis. And I think that's what Elon Musk is trying to do, set the political environment for the senators to be more courageous in the House. Now, the House, cut almost $1.8 trillion. That's one of the largest cuts in American history, but it pales in comparison to the spending that they allowed to happen over the last 5 years. And so Elon Musk sets the stage to give political cover to the Senate to be more aggressive. Now, where will that stage end? Where will the big plays in? I think Act 1 of the Senate's big, beautiful bill play will be tomorrow. There'll be a 3 to 4 hour meeting in the Senate caucus tomorrow. I talked a little bit ago to Senator Tommy Tuberville, one of President Trump's big allies in the Senate. He thinks that the discussions tomorrow and in the next week will focus on, can we just get rid of a lot of these alphabet soup agencies that do anything? We're not talking about getting rid of cabinet departments, but there are a lot of downstream agencies that do work. They have funny sounding names, funny sounding acronyms. No one in America cares about them. We can cut a lot of money just by getting rid of those agencies. That's what he thinks tomorrow's discussion will be about.
So I think that I should warn Bernie Sanders today then, because he has come out on X here just a little while ago saying, you're right, it is an abomination. We should not allow this bill to go through because it cuts Medicaid and Medicare and, basically kills old people and children, which you would expect Bernie to say. But Bernie's not going to get that wish if they do start getting rid of agencies, entire agencies, right?
Yeah, listen, that's one way. And also, listen, he's not telling the truth about the bill. If you're on Medicaid, you still get to stay on Medicaid. If you're an able-bodied, it's your choice whether to stay on Medicaid or to skip the workfare and give it up. But it's a personal choice. It isn't a government booting you off the program. The Democrats have a problem with personal responsibility. They don't want to have any skin in the game for the people who get all these entitlement benefits. But you're not getting kicked off because you have a path to stay on. All you got to do is contribute to society a little bit.
Well, John, I, for one, I think I speak for a lot of the viewers here today, I, for one, am shocked to learn that Bernie Sanders would lie for political gain here today. I think we're all shocked to hear that. All right, let's move on to this excellent reporting from Just the News again on this, I'm going to call it this trifecta of a cover-up. You have to lay this out for us a little bit because the cover-up it's multifaceted. It has many fronts and many layers when it comes to COVID, where it came from, how the vaccines worked, who was told the truth and who was lied to. Jump in.
So listen, I think there's a sub-headline to this that's really important. Look at what the FBI is doing. Under James Comey and Chris Wray, they centralize these investigations. They politicize them. They put them under Washington, D.C., January 6th, and Russia collusion. What's Kash Patel doing? He's actually doing what he said he would do when he became FBI director. Let the field offices take the lead. Let them follow the evidence without interference from Washington. So 3 field offices are doing some pretty extraordinary work. Cleveland FBI is looking at the possibility that federal scientists knew much earlier that COVID-19 was a human-to-human transmission disease, maybe as early as November, December of 2019, long before we all knew. And in one case, they may have actually deleted a sequence of the COVID-19 virus from their databases to hide it from the American public. That would be a really significant issue. So the cover-up on where it came from, what would the motive be for those scientists? Well, NIH, as we now know after many lies, was in fact funding gain-of-function research at Wuhan Institute of Virology, the very location where the FBI believes the virus began. So that's Cleveland. Hop to Baltimore. Baltimore's taking a look at pretty clear evidence that some scientists were intentionally moving discussions about federal policy and federal government onto private email to keep it from being discovered by Congress and the American public under the open records laws. That's a pretty big case and a potential evasion of records law. We've had many instances of that. Hillary Clinton going back to 2016 with her private email. Joe Biden more recently. Maybe this time some real accountability for somebody that used private email for public purpose. And then the third part is the biggest part, and potentially I think one of the more serious, and that is the stuff that Ron Johnson's been talking about and Rand Paul's been talking about. 2 things. Was the vaccine approval process, getting this experimental vaccine to everyone before it was fully approved, was it manipulated in some way by the drug manufacturers? There's some whistleblowers apparently assisting the FBI, their credibility still being determined. And then after the a vaccine got into the marketplace, was there an effort to cover up the fact that there were these very serious side effects happening, particularly young men getting heart inflammation that could be lethal, cardiomyopathy. So that is the third leg of the stool. All three investigations occurring in field offices without Washington getting in the way. That's a very different FBI than the one we've seen the last 10 years during the weaponization era.
As you throw that all out there, John, it's hard for me to say what is the most egregious, but it seems to me when it was discovered early on that these vaccines were causing myocarditis issues, causing people to die, young men especially, and they knew it. It's pretty clear at this point. So this brings me to criminal behavior. If you get into this, and if the FBI is breaking up the investigation to Cleveland and Baltimore and elsewhere, then obviously they're pursuing. The FBI doesn't do this to pursue for their own interest. They do it to see if somebody broke the law and then to file charges against those people. What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some arrests in the next several weeks out of Baltimore. I think the case about the hiding the information from the public or using private email might be the simplest of the cases to look at. I think the most complex is the vaccine case out of New York. It's just getting started. They got to assess the whistleblowers. They got to use grand jury to determine if there was a cover-up. Now, Senator Ron Johnson has dug up some really amazing evidence. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago. We now know that there was an effort to delay notification, the sort of normal alert for vaccine adverse events when it came to cardiomyopathy. That is a hot area of interest right now. And then going back to the COVID origins, the clock is running down on that. The 5-year statute of limitations could be running out on some of those events. And so they have to move very quickly if they're going to do anything. And I think they're looking at this deletion of this data and whether that was part of a longer effort that extended into 2020 when they started writing letters saying, oh, it was natural origins, when they kind of knew there might have been a lab accident that started this whole mess.
I think they did know. I think a lot of people believe that, which brings me back full circle to something else that's in the headlines right now. Of course, that's the auto pen. A number of people were pardoned. Anthony Fauci received a pardon from an auto pen. And the Department of Justice now looking into whether or not President Joe Biden was aware of these actions. I think that's a legitimate investigation as well, because it would impact what would happen here. If Anthony Fauci and his cohorts knowingly buried the information about myocarditis or a host of other things that you've revealed here, John, then those pardons would be critical to those people. And if those pardons don't stand, and I don't know, we're in uncharted territory here. Will the pardon stand? Will the auto pen stand up? Who's going to testify? Who's going to say Joe Biden was with it and on top of his game and able to make the decision, the rational decision to justify things being signed? I mean, that opens a whole nother Pandora's box, doesn't it?
Yeah, let me throw one other one in there. There could be entire laws that Joe Biden signed into law during the Democrat Congress that may be invalid. Why? Because it is very clear. The Constitution says the president must sign a law. It doesn't say an auto pen can sign for him. So that is another area you could potentially reverse some of the Biden agenda laws if those court cases were to succeed. Now, a signature is not required for a pardon under the Constitution. It just says a president must approve. But if a whistleblower, or if they could show that Joe Biden didn't know he had pardoned some of the people, he didn't give his approval, just an auto pen person operated by, a person downstream from him did it without the president's knowledge, you could clearly invalidate those pardons. And I think that's some of what the Justice Department has begun looking at. So look at both of those. Yeah. Imagine if the big infrastructure spending bills that Joe Biden signed with an auto pen, if they got invalidated, you could erase all of the regulatory impediments or
and all the spending
those laws. So some people looking at that right now.
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act. When you're talking about all this Green New Deal spending and all of these, grants, billions of dollars, if it all gets invalidated, boy, that'll create an exciting day in Washington.
It brings us back to the discussion we started on, right? Congress doesn't often have the will to cut this stuff back, even though they criticize it. But if it's invalidated, they wouldn't have to vote on a rescission. It would just be invalidated.
Yeah, and then they take credit for it. That's how politicians work.
Of course they would.
It would be invalidated. They'll take the credit.
That's how Washington works.
I give you credit, John, for Just the News. You can find out more at justthenews.com. And I guess that Tommy Tuberville, the Senator Tuberville interview tonight at 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, 6 o'clock on Just the News, No Noise. Yep.
There you have it, right here in Real America's Voice. John, thank you as always.
Thanks, my friend. Good to be with you.
If you want the best, you listen to what John Solomon has to say and what he's writing. Don't miss a day at justthenews.com. All right, coming up after the break, a bill known as the Patriots Over Politics Act has been introduced by Congressman Tom Barrett. It aims to restore education benefits for service members who were discharged for refusing to take the COVID vaccine. Rightly so, it seems now, obviously. I'll give you more of the details coming up next on AVL. Because of the previous administration and the liberal agenda, there have been many service members who were unjustly discharged for refusing to take the experimental COVID vaccine. Looks like they made the right decision. No myocarditis for them, but thanks to President Trump and the current administration, those service members were reinstated with full back pay and benefits. But President Trump isn't the only one looking out for the service members who protect you, me, and our neighbors in this country. Recently, Congressman Tom Barrett of Michigan, along with 13 of his colleagues, introduced the Patriots Over Politics Act. Now, this bill that would restore the rights of service members to transfer their unused GI Bill education benefits to their children if their military careers were cut short due to the Department of Defense's COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Make no mistake, people, this bill is not only essential for our servicemen and women, but it's also correcting the injustices that the Biden administration brought down on our proud service members. Here with me to discuss this is, in fact, my congressman. He represents me in Michigan, Tom Barrett. Nice to see you, Congressman. I saw you this morning. We actually flew into D.C. On the same plane today.
We did.
This is a big deal. This is a big deal here because you're saying, look, if you got shorted because of politics, if you got shorted because of an agenda from the previous administration and you were serving this country, we're going to correct that. Tell us how this is all going to come together.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for your attention on this bill. And it was great to see you at the airport flying in this morning. Yeah, this is a really important bill. It's one that I felt was really imperative to try and correct the injustice and right the wrong that you said of what affected so many service members, myself included, and other people that I served with in the military who were, completing the terms of their agreement with the United States military in order to transfer their unused unused GI Bill benefits that they accrued through their service, through their commitment, and through their sacrifice to our country. To be able to transfer those benefits to their children is an ordinary thing that members do. It comes with a commitment to serve some number of additional years. A lot of folks were in the process of completing that when their careers were cut short by the COVID-19 vaccine mandate out of the Biden administration. I'm really thankful that there have been steps to correct that by the Trump administration, but some of this is going to require a legislative fix in order to get done, and that's really what I've been working on. That's why I introduced this bill. I'm thankful that more than a dozen of my colleagues joined me in making sure that we can stand up and correct this issue for our service members who had their careers cut short. People have to remember, it wasn't just that they lost their job when this happened, they also lost benefits and they lost other opportunities and career growth and other things, all because they stood in a principled way against this mandate. In my own personal instance, I had already had COVID, tested by the Army, and had already overcome it, had already donated my blood plasma and antibodies to other people through the Red Cross. And then this mandate comes out that was in clear violation of the Army's own regulations. And I just said, enough is enough. I'm not going to beg Joe Biden to keep me in the Army. I'm not going to get a dishonorable discharge for this, but I had to forego these benefits. And I think it's important for people who are in my case or the thousands of other American service members who left under these circumstances to not get punitively punished in this way.
Well, let me ask you this, Tom. For people that don't understand, as a veteran, you can offer benefits to family members to go to school, and there's other benefits involved. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, when service members enlist, they are, they accrue benefits for the Montgomery GI Bill based on their terms of service and the length of time that they've been in. I had actually joined the military prior to 9/11 and had used some of my GI Bill benefits like a lot of similarly situated veterans like I was. And then in about 2008, they changed the terms of the GI Bill to form what is now commonly called the post-9/11 GI Bill, which was retroactive to 9/11 and enhanced those benefits for service members and then allowed those benefits to be transferred to their children if they were unused by the service member. So I have and other service members have, some number of months of benefits that were unused through the pursuit of my own education that I could designate my children to benefit from them.
What happened to the children of service members who said, I'm not taking the vaccine and didn't take your path and were bounced out? Did the kids get thrown out of school? How did that work?
Yeah, they wouldn't necessarily be thrown out of school, but they would not be reimbursed or eligible for the Montgomery GI Bill benefit that their parents would have transferred to them. So instead of being able to plan for your child's education, say, look, a portion of this will be covered by the GI Bill benefits that I've earned or that the parent earned through their service, it then would the financial responsibility would entirely fall on the child or the family to pay for that. And that may have been something that they reasonably, kind of anticipated that benefit being available to them for their children, that then they were cut short and that created a financial hardship to them. My children are not of college age yet, but this is something that I had designated as a forward-thinking proposal for their own college education someday, and now that benefit has been taken away because I opted to retire from the military once this mandate took effect. And there were thousands of others in a situation like mine, some of whom were retirement eligible because they had enough years of service like I did, others of whom may have been 10 or 12 or 15 or more years into their career, but short of the time needed for retirement, where they were forced into a really even more challenging position where their retirement benefits, if you didn't hit 20 years, you essentially were left with next to nothing for a retirement benefit.
Do you have any idea about the viability of this bill? To me, it seems pretty straightforward, pretty much common sense, but then again, common sense is in short supply in this town that we're sitting in right now. Yes. So give me your best guess.
It can be. Yeah, I have a commitment from the chairman of the subcommittee that we're going to take this up here fairly soon in the Economic Opportunity Subcommittee of the VA. From there, I have a pretty strong expectation that the chairman of the committee will take it up. And, I'm going to work this as hard as I can through the system. And if there's another way to get this achieved, outside of doing the standalone bill, then I'm going to work on those angles as well through the Department of Defense and otherwise, because I want to make sure we get this done one way or another and then look at other things things that were withheld from veterans who left under duress during the time of the vaccine mandate to make sure that they're made whole for their service that they committed to our country. Many of these people deployed multiple times, every time they were called to service over the entire, duration of the war on terror. The least we can do is make them whole for that sacrifice they made.
Congressman, thank you for that, and we'll keep an eye on the bill. Of course, let us know as it progresses. Good seeing you again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Always appreciate you. Tom Barrett, my member of Congress, which I think is always a great thing to have. Now, after the break, in multiple liberal states, Democrats are defying President Trump's executive order to keep biological males, that's men, from competing in women's sports. Seems pretty basic, but they don't seem to get it. Details coming up. Well, recently, students and parents alike were packed at a school board meeting in Naperville, Illinois, to express outrage after a transgender student won multiple events in a 7th grade girls' track meet. Parents calling for federal funds to be frozen for the school district until their policies are compliant with Title IX, and President Trump's executive order. Not only that, but we're seeing this in more than one liberal state. In California, just days after President Trump warned the state about allowing a biological male, that's a boy, to compete in girls' track and field, the state allowed a trans athlete to take 2 state titles against the girls. A.B. Hernandez, a boy, took first place in the girls' high jump and the triple jump at the state championship this last weekend. Liberal states continue to defy executive orders in the law. We'll have to see how the White House will respond, but I imagine a lawsuit is on its way. Here with me now to discuss it is TPUSA contributor Morgan McMichael. Morgan, I just don't understand. Nice to see you again, first of all, but I just don't get it. This is not a hard call. It's not a hard call, is it? Boys compete over there. Girls compete over here. Simple stuff. Even the Democrats don't support this garbage, and yet they sit there and stand behind it because I don't know why. They know it's a terrible issue for them. And what are they doing?
This is a massive bipartisan issue that the American people fail to recognize, and these school boards honestly think they are holier than thou and are allowed to defy President Trump's executive order, which is very clear. The messaging coming from the Trump administration is not wishy-washy. There's no gray area. Women and men compete in separate categories. Biological men are not allowed to compete in female sports. So the fact that we are seeing this uprising of parents having to push back against school boards like we see in Illinois is honestly heartbreaking for the young girls who lost because of a biological man. And for all the parents that were there, I believe there were about 100 parents there waving transgender flags in support of the biological male athlete who competed at the school. Shame on you. Shame on you for speaking and going directly against young women, because I know that there are parents in that audience who have daughters, maybe who competed against this man. And this is what the issue is when it comes to men competing in women's sports, is women are continuously being put at disadvantages, and now these school boards think that they're the lawmakers. Unfortunately, they are not, and they need to start actually listening to the executive order, because it is very clear. And like you said, I hope that lawsuits are soon to come for these school boards and these states who are breaking the laws at this point.
Well, lawsuits, but one of the other tools in the tool chest, I believe, is taking away federal funding. You can cut off the money. That's the only way you're going to get the attention of, I think, school districts that, as you put it, believe they're holier than thou. They will decide what's best for your children. They will decide that your daughter doesn't deserve to be on that podium no matter how hard she's worked, that some boy deserves to be up there at the top and somebody else gets knocked off the podium. I mean, it's grotesque, really. But money might be the only avenue to getting their fingers off of this. What do you think?
I think you might be right. I mean, we've seen what that looks like in regards to Harvard University, of Trump threatening to pull the federal funding from the university system. I think that threatening to remove the funding, but actually moving forward and removing funding from these schools that are defying the rules, is definitely an effective method in pushing back against even the parents who are supportive of this, because we really need to be backing young women, because, they're not able to vote yet. They're not 18. And I think that's what this administration is all about when we talk about promises made, promises kept, is we are also protecting not just our daughters now, but our future daughters and the rest of the women in this country who need to be supported and protected.
Yeah, it just seems to me that Title IX was created for the sole purpose to give women and girls an equal playing field, an equal chance to compete. How do you arrive at Title IX as being taken care of by putting a boy on the podium? Morgan, I just don't get it. I'll give you the last word.
I wish I could tell you why Title IX continuously is disregarded by the left, but I don't think that there's an answer to that. I think that the Trump administration just needs to continue to keep the pressure on these blue states, on these school boards, and continue to protect women's sports, which is exactly what they're doing. If the next step is lawsuits and even removing federal funding, then that is what will need to happen in order to actually protect women's sports and not just say it.
Yeah, I agree. Morgan, nice seeing you again. Thank you for being here and bringing common sense along as your companion. Thank you as always.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, up after the break, the FBI is investigating claims of targeted violence against religious groups after an evangelical conservative group held a rally in Seattle in response to the mayor blaming Christians for violent protests. Details when we come back. The FBI is set to launch an investigative probe after an evangelical Christian group claimed their First Amendment rights were infringed upon. The Christian group held an event recognized as the Rattle in Seattle. A rally is a direct response to Seattle's Mayor Bruce Harrell placing the blame on evangelical protesters for a past demonstration that turned violent when counter-protesters in support of LGBTQ plus whatever ideologies appeared. The mayor's statement further fueled the fire as he stated that the Christian group was coercing a response from the counter-protesters and made a point to say that Seattle is welcoming and supportive to the LGBTQ groups. The response from Seattle's mayor caught the attention of FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, who took to X to announce the probe and ended the post by stating that freedom of religion isn't a suggestion. Joining me now to talk about this is the lead pastor at Pursuit NW, Russell Johnson. Pastor, thank you for being here. Tell me, who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys here? Seems pretty obvious to me.
Well, it's not the group that hospitalized Seattle police officers. It's not the group that put out a statement blaming church folks for the unmitigated violence, for the high crime of exercising their First Amendment rights to worship in a public park. It's not the group that was on the receiving end of urine-filled water balloons. It's not the group that was on the receiving end of, Antifa furries performing sex acts in front of children. That's the reality of the Seattle landscape, and that was why I was so shocked when the mayor put out a statement saying it's the church's fault for why they were attacked. It's like the most egregious form of political victim blaming I've ever seen. And that's why we had thousands turning out in 36 hours notice for a worship rally protest on the front steps of City Hall, because the response from the political leadership of Seattle was just absolutely unhinged.
Yeah. It seems bizarre to me. And I just saw the video. You can pull that video back up of the protests where it says, freedom, cut Bruce loose, Christian values are American values. All of those things are true. Protect parents' rights. I don't see anything controversial in there at all, Pastor. This is what they think is wrong. Free speech for all. I'm a free speech absolutist. I'm also a practice your own religion. I'm a First Amendment. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution is the envy of the world. For freedom-seeking people, for people who want liberty, it is the envy of the world. And they seem, well, let's be honest, Pastor. Those on the left hate freedom. They do. They want to shut down what's said on the internet if they don't agree with it. They want to say what's said about abortion, shut down. They want to say what's said about the LGBTQ community, shut down. You're not allowed to say those things. It's hate speech or some such nonsense. And they're not going anywhere unless we can shut them down and say, defend the Constitution of these United States. It's worked pretty well for almost 250 years. What say you?
Yeah, and I think this is why ultimately it attracted the attention of the Department of Justice. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the right of not just our side, but the other side to peacefully express their support or their opposition in the public square of civic engagement. In America, we don't all have to agree on the same religion. But at a bare minimum, we should agree that every American is at least entitled to the same rights. And for the high crime of peacefully expressing our First Amendment values, worshiping God, singing hymns in a public park, church folks were violently assaulted. And it's interesting to me that, the left is okay with every repugnant, moral value or opinion, and they're totally free to express that. But as soon as you disagree with the quote-unquote values of Seattle, you become some sort of extremist and propagator of hate speech. These were people singing Christian tunes in a public park. And apparently that is so antithetical to the extreme left that they have to resort to physical violence. And at our rally on City Hall, it was interesting. We were actually joined by a lot of people who weren't Christian and are not conservative, but like me and you, believe in the First Amendment. Yeah. Who said, hey, we're going to stand with the church and support your right to express your worship of God.
Which is the way it should be.
Physical attacks. I mean, absolutely.
That's the way this country is established. It's the way it should be, Pastor.
And I think that's why.
And the fact that these people are not arrested, these people should have been handcuffed and dragged out of there is the way it should be. Because if they're attacking you for freedom of religion with violence, that should be punishable by at least a couple of nights in jail to start. Pastor, I have to leave it right there. Russell Johnson, Pursuit Northwest. Appreciate you coming in. Keep us informed, if you would, please. Thank you very much. All right. A new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing the broken health care system. But the reality is there's only so much government can do. And that if we really want to make America healthy again, it starts at home with each of us. That's the way it is. It starts with you. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors all the time on this network, and you know what their products, they're the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you are prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. Kits that contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss, so much more. They can help you stay healthy, live longer, and a more satisfying life. It's the quality of life. That's why the health is something you can't put a price on. Make America healthy again starts at home with you. Do your part. Protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/voice today. twc.health/voice. Use the promo code VOICE. You'll save 10%. And look, your good health, it's priceless. Don't go anywhere. More AVL after the break. President Trump giving his strong reaction on the Egyptian illegal alien who threw Molotov cocktails into a crowd of pro-Israeli protesters, setting Americans on fire in Colorado Sunday. In a Truth Social post, President Trump stated yesterday's horrific attack in Boulder, Colorado will not be tolerated in these United States of America. This is yet another example of why we must keep our borders secure and deport illegal anti-American radicals from our homeland. My heart goes out to the victims of this terrible tragedy and the great people of Boulder, Colorado. The Department of Homeland Security announced Monday it is revamping its ICE tip line in the wake of the Boulder attack committed by a 45-year-old man, Mohammed Suleiman of Egypt. Here now to talk about this and President Trump's response, CEO of Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence, Nick DeMauro. Nick, I don't know what to say about this except to say this. These are precursor events. The attack on Governor Shapiro's residence, the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. 2 weeks ago, 2 Jewish members of the consulate here in Washington, D.C., gunned down and murdered in the streets. The attacks in Colorado. It's one example after another, but I'm going to tell you right now, I hate to say this, but I believe a much bigger attack is on the way. These are precursor events. The guy in Colorado was trying to buy assault weapons so that he could do a mass shooting. That was his intent. Another case out of Michigan here that I saw just yesterday. Same thing. Both were turned away because they couldn't pass the background check. One, the other was not a legal citizen, could not buy a gun. The background check worked. But there are bigger attacks coming. I'm sorry, Nick, but that's what I believe. Am I wrong?
Steve, I agree with you. Lock them up and throw away the key, buddy. This is horrific. We need to be aggressive. I think the president is right on. First of all, we got a situation here with an illegal person illegally in this country. He should be prosecuted and he should be held for the full extent of the law. Obviously with due process, but the bottom line is this can't be tolerated in this country.
Yeah, you know what I think the proper response is, Nick? Set him on fire. But hey, I'm a bit radical that way. You know, fight fire with fire. I read that somewhere. I think it's the Bible. Look, we need to throw these people out. They were unvetted, unchecked, and then unleashed on this country. And here is the result of that. The attack on the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, the murder of 2 Jewish people in Washington, D.C. simply because they were Jewish, this attack in Colorado, and these are just the latest examples of anti-Semitic violence that's happening all across America and, frankly, throughout the Western world. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in France, it's happening in Germany, it's happening in the Netherlands. We have failed to do our job to make sure the people come into our countries should be here and want to be here, want to assimilate and want to contribute to whatever this thing is that we call America. Murdering American citizens and setting them on fire is not at all what we can accept. Go ahead.
Absolutely, sir. And that's why we work hard at LEAD to educate our youth in not being violent. And violence is unacceptable in this country, and we must do everything humanly possible to make sure it doesn't. This southern border issue, the whole border issue, has been a problem in the past administration. It seems to be being corrected right now, and I think we have to really do something major and set the tone that, you know, this isn't America. And I grew up in a small little community up in Bergen County, New Jersey, called New Milford, and I had a lot of Jewish friends, and my heart goes out for any religious group, and I'm very close with Jewish families, and this is uncalled for.
Yeah, these are American families. They're American citizens being set on fire by some radical in my country, yes, my country, illegally. Get the hell out. We can't put up with this. This is a terrible thing that they've done to us. And I don't even think it was Joe Biden. I don't think he had any idea what he's doing. I agree with Donald Trump on this insofar as Joe Biden was never an open borders guy. He never believed in such things. But the auto pen, whoever controlled the auto pen believed in open borders, that's for sure. I'll give you the last word here, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, I agree with you. President Biden years ago was pro-law enforcement. He was actually law enforcement was very supportive of Senator Biden. And obviously, my heart goes out to the gentleman. He's having some medical issues. But it was uncalled for at the end. And we're a better country right now at this point, and we need to keep going in the right direction.
Amen, Nick. I agree with you on that. Thank you for being here, Nick.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
There you have it. All right, think about it. Every dollar you spend is either supporting your values or it could be working against them. In today's economy, where you spend your money, it matters. That's how we take back our country. Patriot Mobile is leading the way as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Switch today without sacrificing quality or service. You will get exceptional nationwide coverage because, unlike most budget wireless providers, Patriot Mobile has access to all 3 major U.S. networks. You can even add 2 numbers on 2 networks on 1 phone. Did you know that? Nobody can do that. Stay connected with flexible, unlimited data plans to fit your lifestyle. These plans offer high-speed data, mobile hotspots, international roaming, device protection, and even internet backup. And here's the best part. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're supporting faith, family, and freedom. If you believe in our First and Second Amendment rights, the sanctity of life, supporting our veterans, this is where you belong. I've been here for years now. You should join me. Switching is simple. Keep your number, keep your phone, or you could upgrade. Patriot Mobile's 100% U.S.-based team will get you activated in minutes and do it by speaking English. It's quite a treat. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT to get a free month of service with promo code RAV. Make the switch. Defend freedom with every call and text. That's patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. Coming up after the break, I'll bring you our chief White House correspondent, Brian Glenn, to end the show with a bang and give us details on that press event with Caroline Levitt just a short while ago. We'll be right back. Secretary Caroline Levitt held a press briefing earlier today where she addressed multiple ongoing issues, including the Boulder terror attack, anti-Semitism, and the need for the deportation of violent illegal aliens. Here with me now is our chief White House correspondent, the one and only Brian Glenn. He's tan, he's rested, and by God, he's ready. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Tan, rested. I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm tan and rested,
well,
though.
Enough.
Good point.
Fair enough. All right, so I think the big thing that everybody's talking about right at this moment, Elon Musk comes out and calls this a grotesque abomination or something about the one big bill, and Caroline was fiery about that from the podium, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was, and she made it perfectly clear that the president is aware of his discrepancies in this big beautiful bill, but nevertheless, the bill has the support of the president. Hopefully, it will have the support of the Senate as well and get some of those changes. I do know I was making note that online there's a few things in that bill that people might have missed, and hopefully some of that gets taken out. Some of the good stuff, some of the bad stuff, but it'll be revised. But yeah, she did make it perfectly clear that Elon Musk, not a big fan of it, but hopefully we can, in President Trump's words, let's get it done.
Yeah, Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, is going to be on with John Solomon here this afternoon. And he says that tomorrow in the Senate get-together, they're going to be getting whole agencies. They're going to put line item whole agencies. We'll see if that's true. You got about 30 seconds for the last word, my friend.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a spicy press briefing, if you will. We went everything from the deportations to even the auto pen. That seems to be a fan favorite on Twitter. We're talking about the auto pen. Yeah, it's a big deal. Some of the investigations going on that, but it's never a dull moment here at the White House. I anticipate another briefing, perhaps on Friday, maybe. On Thursday, we do have the new Chancellor of Germany coming into town.
Well, there you have it. Brian Glenn. I'll see you at the White House tomorrow. I am in town. I'm going to meet him over there tomorrow. We'll do a special edition of America's Voice Live. Brian, thank you as always. Greatly appreciate you. Tomorrow morning, you can start your programming day right here in Real America's Voice with me on the Steve Gruber Show right here. Set your alarm. Tell your friends. Gather around the campfire. We'll tell stories on the Steve Gruber Show right here. You'll love it. Bring your hot coffee. I'll bring the hot topics. And then, of course, I'll be back here for America's Voice Live from the White House tomorrow.
Tried to shut them up.
There's no guarantee to free speech.
They tried to cancel them.
Deplatforming works.
They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
They call them rebels.
Basket of deplorables.
They call them rogues.
They claim to guns or religion.
And they say they're outlaws.
These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
War Room presents Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws.
You set out to take Vienna. Take Vienna!
The national bestseller by longtime Bannon producer Dan Fluette. Take a journey through the pictorial history of War Room. In a culture that celebrates the weak, show your support by standing with the rebels. Go to doitfluette.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Use the code RAV20 for 20% off your order. Stand with the rebels and never back down.
Corner of Broad and Wall, markets closing, New York Stock Exchange, those floor traders clapping, whoever the people in the balcony are. Usually it's a public company, someone's going public, or sometimes it's that dude's hitting the gavel as well as. Did he ring the bell? Not sure he even rang the bell. But anyway, so that's what they do. They gather around. If there's a new company that's being listed on the New York Stock Exchange, they'll tend to throw someone up there. A lot of times, charities and foundations will get that as well. Here are the numbers at the close. Let's see if ours match up. 214. Let's say 244. I have 214. 244 on the sheet. I have the NASDAQ up 156, close to what we're showing you right there. The VIX, again, the VIX is where we want it to go down. The VIX is like a jittery or nervous index for the major players on Wall Street. As it comes down, they're getting more confident. And as you see, VIX comes down, the market starts to elevate. 3,378. We've been talking about gold since I started here at RAV. I've been talking about it since I started at Fox News 18 years ago. When I did first day at Fox, it was $580 an ounce. It's now $3,378. You want gold in your portfolio. Oil, we'd like to see that a little lower, under 60. That's Trump. He's going to get it down. A couple of the other things that we want to talk about, as I mentioned, gold still holding at 33.78. Crypto, it's been made that big move up. They sold down to 75,000 per Bitcoin, ran up to 112,000 per Bitcoin. It's backed off a bit, trading right around 106,000. So it looks like, again, and I've been doing this stuff for a long time, investing. If I were and continue to will do. I own Bitcoin. I just full disclosure, I do think it's going to start to make some new highs. You could see a 200,000, 300,000 Bitcoin. Why does it matter? You want to make some money. No, nothing wrong with making money, folks. Don't hate the game. Hate the player. Don't hate the game. A couple of the big stocks today. Apple did very well, up $1.57 in Apple. Google off a little. Tesla, Elon Musk. Tesla still. Remember when Tim Walz said Tesla $265? We want to see it go down. Well, Tesla is now $344. Elon Musk is worth $400 billion again. So all you haters of Musk, stop hating on him. The guy's a very wealthy man, the richest man in the world. NVIDIA, the one Trump loves, up $3.84. It's a nice move on NVIDIA, and so forth and so on. Do we have MTG? Do we have my dear friend Congresswoman MTG, my first guest, by the way? She's here. Okay, they're telling me she's here. By the way, tomorrow, June 4th, the DOJ subcommittee is having a hearing to expose the billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars that were funneled into radical NGOs days before Trump took office. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is here to discuss. Let's talk about this for a second, MTG. Really good to have you. You're on that DOJ subcommittee. Are you leadership on the subcommittee as well?
I chair the DOJ subcommittee.
Damn, yes. I knew we were going to get the right person at the right. And by the way, you know who else has the right person at the right time? The DOJ subcommittee has the right person chairing the DOJ subcommittee. All right, so tell us what you found. You found some NGOs, the $100 billion maybe, but also let's also talk about USAID on the backside of it. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Eric. We're having an explosive hearing tomorrow at 2 p.m. on the DOJ Subcommittee on Oversight, where we're going to be investigating the massive amount of taxpayer dollars that have been funneled into NGOs. And Eric, the Democrats have quite a business model with this. They basically create the policy. That's what they did over the past 4 years, created the policy, then funded the NGOs, their friends and family, and then some of them even left the Biden administration to go work in these NGOs that they wrote the policy and did the funding for. And then they enabled the invasion of America, but not just on the border. They also had NGOs that affected the, climate change scam and many other things. But this is where taxpayer dollars fund hard left policies, and then these NGOs enact those policies with taxpayer funding.
It's amazing, MTG, if I may, Chairwoman. It's amazing what you talk about. You talk about the Democrats, they step up for these NGOs. They'll get money, taxpayer money, sent to the NGO, and then they'll go work for them. It's the same thing, believe it or not, on Wall Street. I come from 15 years on Wall Street. It was the same thing. The people who are regulating Wall Street, the SEC, they work at the SEC, and then they leave there, MTG, and they give sweetheart deals to people, fat cat, rich people on Wall Street, companies doing bad things, and they cut them some slack. They get the SEC to back off, and then they go work for those same Wall Street companies. I mean, if you want to talk about conflict of interest, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting how those circles always run so tightly. You know, it's interesting, though, the Democrats with NGOs, it wasn't just our own government funding these NGOs. It was also the UN. The UN, which takes taxpayer funding from America, would take our money in the UN, and then they would also turn around and fund these NGOs that enabled the invasion of America. So, but it's interesting. It's like cronyism. It's always their friends, whoever they're buddies with. I mean, you're talking about whether it's Wall Street, whether it's within the Biden administration, or with it's the UN. They all work together to push the policies and try to get the results that they want.
You know, another one just comes to mind. Another one comes to my mind is when Jack Dorsey owned Twitter and Mark Zuckerberg, when they were playing footsie with the White House, with the Biden White House, there were a lot of those folks who were getting things done with the social media. They had Trump banned. They were pulling down the Hunter Biden laptop story left and right. Some of the folks that were working in the White House ended up going to work for these social media companies afterwards. Even FBI as well. I think FBI agents were leaving the FBI, going to work at Twitter, Jack Dorsey's Twitter.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I'll never forget. My own personal Twitter account got banned for nearly 1 year until Elon Musk bought Twitter and changed it to X. That's the only way I got my account back. And what did I do? I told the truth about COVID, and I came out against vaccines and against masking and the whole shutdowns. But you're right. Whenever they're in power, whenever the left is in power, they use government, they use social media, they use the media to push the policies and the results that they want. And I think that's why we won the election in November, is the American people woke up to all of this and finally said they had enough.
MTG, Elon Musk, who we got to credit Elon with starting Doge. He's the creator of Doge. Tweeted today, or X today, posted on X today, that he was pretty upset about the big, beautiful bill. He said it was too bloated, there's too much in it. So how do you... What's the response? I mean, clearly he cares about the country. He wants us to spend less. He wants government to shrink. And then he takes a shot at the bill. So help us kind of square that circle. Oh,
I'm glad you brought that up. You know, and I completely agree. This is why I chair the Doge subcommittee, is I believe we have $36 trillion in debt. I think this is what's going to sink us as a nation. And that's on both sides of the aisle. And I agree with Elon. But here's my situation as a member of Congress. The White House and legislative affairs in the White House worked very closely with Congress, and they wrote the bill together. And the bill that the president asked me to vote for, that is the one big, beautiful bill. I told the president, and he actually agreed with me, that we don't love everything in the bill, but there were some really good things in there we do love. And that's extending the president's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, making it permanent. That's also funding Border Patrol and ICE to help them with deportations. And that's also funding energy, America First Energy, and switching things over from the CR that we've been living under with the Biden administration and their policies, and moving over to the president's agenda. But is Elon wrong? No, he's not wrong. The only thing I wish he had done different is, you know, he just left Doge. I wish he had voiced these concerns before he left when the bill was being written, instead of waiting and saying what he said today. But he's not wrong, and I don't like the amount of spending either.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people are saying, well, you know, why didn't you bring this up before? He may have, MTG, he may have said there are bills, but big and beautiful don't necessarily go hand in hand when you're talking about spending bills. So I agree with you. I'm thrilled that you can say he's not wrong, and we're going to take the torch that he lit and run with it going forward. You want to comment on that one more time? I have another question.
Yes, thank you. Doge is only getting started, and that's the way I see it. I think Doge needs to be the mission every single year for every single Congress, and we have a long ways to go. We're $36 trillion in debt. It took us years to get here, and I think it's going to take years and dedicated focus to dig our way out.
MTG, what is Doge going to do about USAID?
Great question. Eric, I had a hearing on USAID just a few months ago, and our recommendation from my DOGE subcommittee is that we need to completely defund USAID and end the program altogether. USAID has been on record, and there's facts that prove it. They have meddled in many foreign countries. They've meddled in foreign elections. I would say they're involved in foreign wars. This is not aid to help people that are, say, hungry or sick. That's what a lot of Americans think of when they hear the word USAID. But no, this is actually an organization that has been used in all the ways that we're sick and tired of. And I recommend, as the chairwoman of the DOGE subcommittee, we need to defund it altogether, and we need to end USAID.
Who is the ranking member on the Democrat side of the DOGE subcommittee?
Her name is Representative Stansbury. She's the Democrat ranking member. She disagrees with me. She would love to continue funding all of the programs that the government funds. The debt doesn't seem to bother her whatsoever, and she really doesn't take any of it seriously.
Do you think there's any funny business going on? Because it was odd when, famously Elon Musk locked the doors of USAID. They stood in front of the doors and said no one's coming in, and Jamie Raskin showed up. I'm pretty sure Jazzy Jasmine Crockett showed up, but they're all Democrat Congress people who were ticked off that those doors were closed, and we found so much waste, fraud, and abuse coming out of USAID. Do you think there's any kind of pay to play going on there?
I don't have any proof of that, but Eric, you can only wonder why in the world would Democrats take this stance. Jasmine Crockett also serves on my DOGE subcommittee, and she constantly argues and basically stumbles and bubbles over her utter nonsense. I love to let her talk because I think she's a perfect spokeswoman for the Democrat Party. But the Democrat Party is protecting big government. The Democrat Party is not against waste, fraud, and abuse. They're actually for excessive spending. And the Democrat Party is the party of the cartels. They're the party for terrorism, and they're party for a massive invasion into our country, and they continue to prove it on and on. So that's why I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to say tomorrow during our hearing, where we're going to be exposing the corruption with NGOs that came through the Biden administration, and they're going to be once again defending Maryland Man, their favorite MS-13 gang member, and gosh knows who else, and complaining that because Jerry Nadler's office was harboring illegal aliens, which is definitely against the law, probably got arrested. So it should be amusing to hear what they have to say. But the Democrats have not changed one single bit. As a matter of fact, they've doubled down on everything bad that they have.
I can't wait for the subcommittee. We'll get some tape and watch you in action tomorrow. MTG is the chairwoman of the DOGE subcommittee. We're going to break it down. We're going to follow it. We're going to cover it, and then we'll get you back and we'll talk about some of the things that we saw and heard. We'd love having you. Thank you so much for your time, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right, folks, the new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a ton of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. They're trying. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is really, really trying. But the reality is that there's only so much the government can do, and that if we really want to make America healthy again, that starts at home with each and every one of us. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors all the time on this network, and you know that their products are gold standards for keeping you safe and your family healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. There are kits that contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist you in the proper use of those medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more that can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying, healthy life. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to www.twc.health/voice today and order. That's twc.health/voice. Use the promo code VOICE to save 10%. And by the way, very quickly before we hit the break, wanted to remind you about the podcast and YouTube page, both updated daily. You can hear the show, any other content. Just hit that right there. Hit subscribe on one of those underneath there that you're watching on your screen. It's always going to be free. We'll be back in 2.5. you go. That is a beautiful place, Fajardo, Puerto Rico. It's on the backside of the island. You're going to say the backside there. The El San Juan Hotel is on one side. That's the backside. It takes about 45 minutes to drive around. Gorgeous drive around and beautiful beaches. And back there somewhere, they have these little canoe rides. Where you can actually see the amoeba, the wildlife light up in the water. It's an incredible place. My next guest says Iran's nuclear program has always been a nuclear weapons program built on decades of lies, and all nuclear sites in Iran must be shut down. Here to discuss is the Deputy Director of the U.S. Office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, Ali Reza Jafarzadeh. Mr. Jafarzadeh, thank you for joining us. Can we just listen to Caroline Levitt today in the? Oh, I'm sorry. Was this in April? I'm sorry. This is a briefing room in April referencing this exact topic. Should Iran ever get a nuclear weapon? Listen.
I do want to answer your question on Iran. Of course, the maximum pressure campaign on Iran continues. But as you know, the president has made it clear he wants to see dialogue and discussion with Iran while making his directive about Iran never being able to obtain a nuclear weapon quite clear. And Mr.
Zafarzadeh, she has continued to say that, and President Trump, as recently as last week, has said the same thing. They will never be allowed to enrich uranium to the point where it's a nuclear weapon. What say you, sir?
Well, first of all, Eric, thank you so much for having me on your show. Definitely what the president has said is extremely important, that the mullahs would never get access to a nuclear weapon, would never be able to develop and build a nuclear bomb. Unfortunately, the agenda of Tehran over the past over 3 decades has always been about building the bomb. When we first exposed the nuclear site in Natanz, which is a uranium enrichment facility, in August of 2002, right here in Washington, that triggered the inspections of Iranian nuclear sites by the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, and the world had the opportunity to stop that program right there and then, because it was in the early stages. Unfortunately, the West at the time, it was the EU3, the 3 nations of the European Union, Britain, Germany, and France, that chose to give concessions to the Iran regime. They got engaged in the policy of appeasement of the Ayatollahs. They legitimized the whole nuclear program, and they allowed them to expand instead of blocking them. And this is where you are right now, the report that was put out by the IAEA shows that Iran has had a history of lying and cheating, and they had worked on tests that is only used for building an implosion bomb, a nuclear bomb, that the regime has rebuffed all of the questions related to development of the nuclear bomb by the IAEA, and they have, a huge amount of enriched uranium.
Allow me, sir. So I'm limited time, a lot of questions, because I'm fascinated by this. I've been doing this a long time. I remember the first time Iran was very close to getting a nuclear weapon. At least we thought they were. Israel took care of business, right? They did it. They wiped out their nuclear capabilities. But for the last 15 years, I've been hearing Iran is this close, a couple of weeks away or a couple of months away from getting an actual nuclear weapon. Are they really that close? And if they are that close, why don't we pave the way for Israel to go ahead and do what they want to do?
Well, first of all, no one knows exactly the point that the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime has been, because they have kept everything secret. But whatever we already know, and thanks to a lot of the revelations we made, but also a lot of other access that was, was made to the sites and questioning and the attention, we now know, at least based on the IAEA reports, that the Iran regime has the fissile material that is required for building 10 nuclear bombs, and only just a screwdriver's turn away from having that fissile material enriched to weapons grade. And then there is the weaponization work, which is the big question mark that the regime has always rejected that, saying we've never done that. But all the evidence on the ground shows that they were doing it 20-some years ago, but they're doing it right now. And then comes the delivery system, the missile program, which they have those missiles. We revealed a number of sites that the regime has been using, medium-range, long-range missiles to deliver them beyond, 3,000 kilometers. So you can't just allow the Iran regime to wait and actually test a nuclear bomb before you make a decision what to do about it. Remember, we're not talking about some European nations. We're talking about the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism that has already been the epicenter of war and terror. Look at what happened in the Middle East since October 7 of 2023. Look at all the proxies that the regime has had over the years in spending money on all of those. But the good thing, Eric, is that this regime, even though they have been at the negotiating table before, has never been so weak as it is today. They lost much of their clout in the region, which they used at the negotiating table.
Right. So here's a question. Here's another question. I just have to get one in because we know that their only nuclear ambition is for weapons. They keep saying it's for electricity power for their growing economy, which is absolute BS because they're sitting on trillions of barrel equivalents of oil. They don't need to go to nuclear. We don't need to go to nuclear. We don't. We're 18%. What are the Iranian people saying? Because this is a mullah-driven government, and they want war with the West. They hate the West. And I get the mullahs want war with the West. It's a religious fanaticism of them, but are the Iranian people on board with what the hard stance that the mullahs are having with the West?
Well, that's a great question, Eric. The people of Iran see the nuclear program of the regime as a means to the survival of the mullahs, which they reject. Remember, much of the nuclear sites of Iran that, many of them were exposed by the organized Iranian opposition because they don't see the program as being anything nationalistic or to the interests of the people of Iran. And also they're rejecting the regime. Since 2018, there have been several rounds of major uprisings in Iran in all 31 provinces, people chanting death to the dictatorship, death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader. They want an end to the rule of the clerics. As we speak right now, the truck drivers, which comprise a major factor in all transportations in Iran, are on strike. In all 31 provinces, today is like the start of the third week of their strike. So every sector of the society are opposed to this regime, and they see the program, draining the resources of a country just to give the regime their survival tool. You mentioned the Iran sitting on the second largest oil and gas reserves combined in the world, and yet 80% of the Iranian population live below the poverty line. Where does the money go? It goes to the nuclear program, funding these proxies. $2 trillion has been spent by the regime on their nuclear program, and it doesn't even support even 1% of the energy needs of the country. There's only one nuclear reactor in Iran that even these enrichment has nothing to do with that. They're not, using the
and by the way, they cheat. The last time we trusted them, they cheated. They hit our inspectors, the international inspectors. They wouldn't let them in. There's no reason to trust these people anymore. Mr. Jafarzadeh, thank you so much for your time. Iranian expert, resistance Iranian expert. Will get you back again. This is not going to go away soon, folks. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Eric. Always a pleasure.
All right, folks. We'll be back 2.5 minutes. obviously in Philadelphia, one of the bluest cities in America. I don't mean the sky. I mean their political leaning. Philadelphia freedom, huh? Okay, sure. Okay, so folks, what if? What if Kamala Harris had won? What if Democrats had cheated enough? We know they cheat every time, but what if they cheated enough this time to get the worst presidential candidate ever into the White House?
We are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being. Because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are.
What was she talking about? Folks, that was nearly the leader of the free world right there. This is what the next 4 years may have looked like.
And I was just telling somebody recently who didn't know, we performed Free to Be You and Me. When I sang about my friend William, who was 5 years old and wanted a doll to hug and hold, I could sing the whole thing.
I think you should sing some now.
Bullet dodged. So what would the country look like? What would the world look like if Kamala Harris and, God help us, Tim Walz had actually won the White House in November? Our soldiers fighting in Ukraine, perhaps? American soldiers, pride flags everywhere, all over the White House, all year long, not just June. The end of women's sports, as we know it. Illegals taking over all of our benefits. World Economic Forum paid actress, climate drama queen, and terrorist supporter Greta Thunberg, I don't know, maybe in the cabinet, Secretary of State. Could have happened. It's not so much the cackling, although that was pretty awful. And it's not so much the fact that she really has no clue about anything, but it's the fact that if Kamala Harris had won the presidency, the Western world, as we know it, would be doomed forever. Days before Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022, Joe Biden had a brilliant idea. His idea, or rather, whoever was running the White House at the time had some sort of idea, to send Kamala Harris to Poland. Let me just see this. Right here. Do you remember this? Do you remember this? Imagine this. Russian troops are building up on the border with Ukraine. War between two European countries is imminent. And they send in Kamala Harris.
I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank and our NATO allies, and what is at stake at this very moment. What is at stake this very moment are some of the guiding principles around the NATO alliance, and in particular, the issue and the importance of defending sovereignty and territorial integrity, in this case of Ukraine.
How do you say word salad in Ukrainian, but that's not even the worst of it? Watch this.
Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
That person wanted to be president of the United States, and that was almost going to happen. Ukraine is a country in Europe. Ironically, that's actually one of the least word salady things she's ever said, and that is what we voted against. But the remnants of that disaster are unfortunately alive and well. Ukraine has suddenly upped the ante over the last few days, drone attacks on Russia that no one saw coming, or did we? But let's be serious. Lindsey Graham travels to Kyiv right before peace talks, and suddenly Zelensky has the cojones to pull off one of the gutsiest attacks ever. Remnants of the Biden-McCain era alive and kicking, and Lindsey Graham has always been an extension of John McCain his whole life, even in his death. Here's a little flashback to clear it up, just in case there are any confusion still rambling in your brain about that. In 2016, after President Trump won the election, he made it quite clear where he, Lindsey Graham, stands.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to and the Baltics, what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world, and it's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here, including Georgia.
This is a very important trip. We just left Ukraine, where we've seen firsthand what happens when Russia crosses over into a country's independence, and we saw it in our own election with the attempt to influence our election.
We will be working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America.
No, that's like a full house there, folks. 3 neocon Republicans and a pair of Democrats. Careful of the company you keep, Senator Graham. This does go back to a time before Kamala Harris. Joe Biden was senator at the time. Then he was a vice president, and he oversaw a lot of the damage that led to where we are now today. Because just imagine how much safer the world would be right now if the Bush administration didn't meddle in Ukraine's 2024 Orange Revolution, or if Obama and his comrades didn't get involved in the overthrow of Ukraine's democratically elected president in 2014. We meddled, and we're seeing the remnants and results of that meddling right now. But if Kamala Harris were president right now, there would be U.S. troops on the front line in Ukraine. I kid you not. Then there's this. They've spent a lot of time talking about how complicit the media is in covering up for Joe Biden's state of mind and body. Surely the vice president would have been fully exposed to that truth, right? We're coming at Jake Tapper, Joe Scarborough, and the whole legacy media, and rightfully so. We're coming at Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Jamie Raskin, and rightfully so. But what about his second-hand man? What about the person who was right behind the leader of the free world and insisted he was just fine? Kamala Harris stood in front of the American people and the world and took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Isn't her failure to act on her knowledge treason? Should be. Why isn't she being prosecuted now? And we know what she's done, because we know what she knew. She's just allowed to run for California governor and carry on as if nothing happened. And let me guess, right now, she's the leading contender. Sorry to say it. She's the top Democrat right now for 2028. How about this? Remember when Kamala Harris was head of something called the Disinformation Task Force? That lasted a good 2 hot minutes, thanks to the appropriate uproar. But then, when she was officially in the running for the White House, she said this.
You can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Wow. All right. Well, let me just tell you something. We dodged the bullet, folks. That could have been her. That might have been the leader of the free world. Can you imagine? This world will be completely different. Trump put a stop to all that nonsense. It went away for now. We got 4 years. We need to make it 12, because whoever takes over for Trump, assuming it's not Trump, there's another 8 years of I don't know, common sense conservatism. We'll be back 2.5 minutes. Atlanta, great place. MTG, Congresswoman, right near the area, if not in it. All right, folks, tax day has passed, but many Americans have missed the April 15th deadline. The spokesperson for Tax Network USA joins us now to talk about options. Welcome back, Cameron Kinsey. Cameron, really good to have you back. How does Tax Network USA actually help clients with resolving these tax issues, I guess, with specific agents and the IRS?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on, Eric. It's good to see you. People know that the IRS has unlimited resources. Their job is to collect. It's not to be fair. And most Americans really don't know their rights. They don't know how to push back against the aggressive tactics of the IRS, but a professional team like Tax Network USA does. We have a team of CPAs. We have licensed attorneys, people who just know the tax code inside and out and are willing to help you. So we negotiate directly with the IRS. We understand how to protect people from this aggressive enforcement that we've seen in the past.
Is there anything too big for Tax Network USA not to handle for an individual client?
No, nothing's too big. We actually have a wide variety of clients, people who are filing W-2, maybe 1099, retirees, big businesses, small businesses. We've seen everything, but my advice really to those who, after the tax deadline has passed, is don't keep ignoring the problem. I've talked to people recently, they're receiving letters in the mail, and we like to tell our clients, don't ignore this, don't ignore the letters in the mail, don't ignore the filing deadline. It really just makes things worse just because the IRS is counting on those mistakes, and it can lead to increased penalties in the process the longer you wait or ignore the problem. So the good news is that you do have experts who are willing to help you. You do need professionals who know how to step in fast and negotiate on your behalf.
Indeed. Leave it to the professionals. You don't want to perform brain surgery on yourself, and you don't want to fly your own jet airplane if you don't have to. Cameron, the process, how long does it take? So I got some issues with my taxes, from beginning consultation till relief.
Yeah, well, I think it does depend on the complexity of your case. Most clients get immediate protection, meaning you can stop the IRS from calling, garnishing, or even seizing your assets. But final resolutions like settlements, lien releases, could take several months depending on the case. But really, from the first call that you have with us, the consultation is completely free. And I would like to mention, for the month of June, we're offering 10% off for all clients for American Pride Month. But, from the first call that you have with us, we're putting the pressure on them, not the other way around. And if you do decide to move forward, we handle all the communication with them, basically acting as a liaison between you and the IRS, so you're not negotiating directly on your behalf.
And Cameron, give us, one or two of the main benefits of actually using Tax Network USA versus trying to go at it alone with the IRS.
Right. Well, the IRS knows the law inside and out. And I know the average American, at least I don't, know tax code inside and out. They'll take advantage of people who don't. And when you go into it alone, you're very vulnerable. But if you have a professional team like Tax Network USA, you're hiring experts who know the loopholes, they know the deadlines, and they really know the pressure points for the IRS. So that difference can potentially save you tens of thousands of dollars in the end.
Very quickly, any type of person, like let's say I'm an independent contractor, or I'm a server in a restaurant, anyone that would need Tax Network more than others?
Yeah, I think, we've seen every single client. We've had people with W-2s. We've had people who don't even really know how to file, where to start, young business owners who are just now getting into the game, or maybe people who are need help with audits and appeals. And so even with audits, we take over that process immediately. We review every single filing form, every single claim. If the IRS has ever made a mistake, which they often do, we challenge that head on. And so we also file appeals for people when necessary to protect our clients from unjust penalties. So most people don't know how to do that on their own. And so those people who don't, that's who is really seeking our help. But we do this every single day.
Tax Network USA, Cameron Kinsey, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, good to see you, Eric. Thank you.
You too. Lawrence O'Donnell, that nut job over on MSNBC, tried to take down Trump during his opening monologue last night, but he actually ended up shredding CNN instead. Listen to this confusing clip.
Needless to say, Donald Trump is the only president in history who can publicly embrace and accept and believe such insanity without immediately provoking a rush of questions by the White House press corps and news organizations around the world about the sanity of the American president, which means that the insanity of the current American president is now officially taken for granted in the news media. No huge banners on the cable news network that recently devoted itself to the issue of presidential mental acuity. That network did not dare devote itself to the mental acuity of Donald Trump. That network decided that the mental acuity of Joe Biden last year is a more important story now.
Oh, Lawrence, do Biden now. Oh, my God, you're worried about Donald Trump's mental acuity? You're out of here. Where were you for the last 4 years, Lawrence O'Donnell? The hot takes about President Trump and the future of not only himself, but his family continue to roll in from all directions. Chuck Todd, former NBC guy, still kind of NBC guy, used to be a good host. Now he's just a yak commentator. He's extremely convinced that Trump is corrupt and that this alleged corruption will ultimately lead to Trump's demise. Listen to this maniac.
The behavior of the Trump organization with crypto is going to be what eats and destroys this MAGA movement eventually. Every political movement comes to an end because of corruption. Maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not next year. This is going to eat away. This is a cancer inside this movement. Crypto and the Trump family's addiction to self-enrichment, it is going to be what brings them down.
You remember when Joe Biden held up a check for $1 billion and said, Barack Obama told me I could hold this back unless you fire the prosecutor, who, by the way, was investigating Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's very own son. You want to talk about corruption? Where were you then, Chuck? I think TDS cases on the left have officially reached an all-time high. You can basically turn on any left-wing news channel, and maybe even some quote-unquote center news channels or outlets, at pretty much any time of the day and find some self-proclaimed expert running their mouth about Donald Trump and his work as president. Perfect example of this comes from yesterday's CNN programming, which featured a so-called Democrat strategist who decided to blame Trump for, among other things, anti-Semitism. Listen.
We also have to acknowledge, Abby, that the rise of anti-Semitism in the last decade can be correlated with the rise of Donald Trump. And the kind of language that he gives a permission slip for all of this anti-Semitic language to be used, in a way that we really hadn't seen before.
Trump's daughter became a Jew. Trump's daughter married Jared Kushner, whose whole family is Jewish. There is no These people are nuts. CNN anchors have a whole lot of air between the ears these days as well. Jake Tapper, who's not some deranged liberal network guest, he's an anchor, a so-called journalist, I'm using air quotes for that, with an obligation to tell the truth. It's really the only thing you really should be doing. Be truthful, be transparent, be honest. He finally took a break from profiting off Biden's decline with that book and spit out a conspiracy theory that might be one of the stupidest things you will hear all day. Brace yourself, take a listen.
In these violent attacks in recent months, Governor Shapiro's house, the attack and murders outside the Jewish Museum. It is also a problem on the right. In addition to the Tree of Life synagogue killing in Pittsburgh, which is obviously homicidal, there's been reporting recently that the Pentagon press secretary, Kingsley Wilson, has a history of social media posts pushing anti-Semitic tropes, extremist theories. NPR reports it has identified 3 Trump officials with close ties to anti-Semitic extremists like Nick Fuentes. I think, and again, the problem right now that we're seeing in terms of violence is on the left. And I want to make it clear, I'm not doing whataboutism. But it is really difficult to be a Jew in America and not see this as a bipartisan affliction.
Unbelievable. These people, if they're not just making stuff up about Trump, they're trying to profit from it. And all he's really doing is trying to be provocative so someone picks up that soundbite, because he's got a book. And as I predicted, it debuted on the New York Times #1, Original Sin, where he's saying the media made mistakes about Biden's mental acuity. Really? You were one of them, Jake. It should be called, I don't know, My Original Sin. But no, he points fingers at other media. Unbelievable. He's trying to sell books. Ready for another prediction? That book, Original Sin, will be made into a movie, probably for Netflix, maybe 1 year from now. More from CNN. Apparently, we shouldn't trust the miserable Democrat polling numbers because of partisanship. Listen.
The poll also asked which party best reflects their view on a range of issues. And when it comes to crime, the economy, immigration, Republicans still hold an advantage, although actually those numbers are starting to slip. How did you think about this poll as you were looking through?
I couldn't help but be reminded about a big problem in my part of the world, the econ part of the world. We can't get a clean read on how consumers feel about the economy because the data has been infected by partisanship.
You guys can't take it. They just cannot take the fact that the American people, remember, they poll everyone in these polls. And when a CNN poll comes back or an MSNBC or an NBC poll comes back, and it shows Trump still winning on the economy with all the trials and tribulations going on, it just ruins their day. It makes them crazy. It makes them come up with crazy ideas. All right, folks, we're going to be back in a 2.5 minutes. After 150 seconds. We'll be right back. All right, let's just get right to it because he's the man, he's the myth, he's the legend, Mr. Steve Bannon. Hey, Steve, very quickly, we ran a little soundbite earlier of Lindsey Graham back in the day hanging out with his best friend, the other fellow neocon, John McCain. Take a listen to this.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to and the Baltics, what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world, and it's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here, including Georgia.
This is a very important trip. We just left Ukraine, where we've seen firsthand what happens when Russia crosses over into a country's independence, and we saw it in our own election with the attempt to influence our election.
We will be working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America.
He basically told the world 9 years ago that He's going. Any question? There's no coincidence with Lindsey Graham being in Ukraine when that drone strike happened.
There are no coincidences. The mantra of the war room, there's no conspiracies, but there's also no coincidences. Of course not. And then to challenge President Trump by basically implying he had a veto-proof bill that he could put forward, that the neocons in the Senate and in the House would overwhelm President Trump's veto. And MAGA, particularly the Real America's Voice audience, the Eric Bolling Show audience, the War Room posse, have got to stand up and start taking notes here.
Good.
About, we've changed the electorate of the Republican Party, turning it into much more working class, middle class, with tons of veterans and tons of people in the military that don't want to be all over the world. We don't want to invade everywhere and invite everybody in here and invade all over the world.
Dumb question, Steve. Dumb question.
And you're seeing the reality.
What the hell is Lindsey Graham doing in Ukraine right now? I mean, what do you? There's absolutely zero reason for him to be there. He's counterproductive, unless he's lining his pockets.
No, with a bill that is coming to the Senate that every other senator is working on, talking about cutting cost and maybe some things in there that should come out, maybe some other things in there that should be in there, but really dealing with the big, beautiful bill because President Trump's put him on the clock. He needs it by July 4th. He's over there stirring it up. This is why I say he should be arrested. Either cut his passport off so he can never come back to the country, or arrest him. He's a troublemaker, and now he's egging the deep state on and misleading the Ukrainian people that we're all in on this. Ukrainian people, particularly, I know the folks that watch this show and do clips in the Kiev Post that's over us every day, understand the American people don't support this, and we're not going to be there. We want to cut all the money off, want to get out of there. The American people and the Russian people have no problem. We don't want to fight each other. We don't want to get into a big third world war with our ally from the Second World War that helped us destroy the fascists and the Nazis. We don't want to do it. We're not going to do it. And Lindsey Graham's over there stirring it up. And you see, it goes back 8-10 years, longer than that. He was there in 2014. He and McCain have been with Victoria Nuland. They've been there since they overthrew the democratically elected government. Although it was a government that leaned Russian and Putin, they've been, as you know, Eric, you've been covering this for over a decade. You know all the ins and outs of this thing.
I do. And when you follow the money, you realize why these folks are making those treks over to Ukraine when they need it right here to do their jobs. Steve Barry, I want to fit this in before we go. Can you roll the soundbite, guys, of O'Reilly with Steve Bannon in it?
Steve Bannon was on with Cuomo earlier. I got to get that soundbite in, and I want your reaction.
We are being sucked into a conflict with the Chinese Communist Party and with Russia that we're not going to be able to turn around. And tonight in Korea, or today in Korea, right now, they're voting, and it looks like we could lose South Korea to a Chinese Communist Party-backed party in Korea. People are not awake of what is happening throughout the world and how we're being sucked in.
You and Bannon agree on that?
No. I think that's way out there. South Korea is a staunch ally, will remain so. I spent 3 days there. Business is booming. One thing I did find out, though, that there aren't any American cars in Japan or Korea or China. So the Trump tariff thing is on very, very solid ground. But let's just get back to the Chinese for a minute. Steve Bannon has got to realize
it went on a little bit more, Steve. But you want to respond to Bill because I love you. I agree with you.
No. Listen. As you know, I'm very fond of Bill O'Reilly. I always like Hammerhead mix. Bill O'Reilly, I'm not saying he lost his fastball, but the whole thing last night was just absurd. To sit there and go, I didn't know there were no American cars in Japan and Korea and China, and to say, we got to cut a deal with the CCP. And then, no offense, a face plant. We're going to start the show again in Korea, where a CCP-backed political party has won, and the conservatives had admitted defeat. And so this is going to be a huge issue about how that happened, the political warfare. Korea has fallen. And by the way, they're already talking about removing troops. They're talking about removing our bases, and not these are a CCP alliance. So Bill's just basic lack of understanding of basic facts about the Chinese Communist Party, about Korea is fine. He's not a guy who spent a lot of time in Asia. And I've got
Bill O'Reilly's a good guy. He's been around a long time. You've known him, Eric. You were a colleague of his for a long time. But it just last night was clueless.
I sat in for him almost 250 times. I spent a lot of time on the O'Reilly factor sitting in for him, and I think he's spot on in a lot of things. I think he is missing the boat on this one. He did just return from an Asian trip. He spent some time in China, and I think I agree with you, Steve. I think there's a big risk when the Communist Party takes over in a country like South Korea. You got to hope that the strength of their economy overwhelms any sort of communist ambitions that they have, but with that, jump across the parallel and pure unadulterated communism's right there. It can get a little scary. It's your show.
Hold it. So Eric, no, hang on. So unrestricted warfare, which has been their manual for 20 to 30 years, talks about political warfare. What they've done in Korea is a model of how you do it. They have taken a long time to get control of that party, just like in Taiwan. The Kuomintang, which was the Nationalist Party under Chiang Kai-shek, is 100% a CCP party today. That's why 20 to 25% in Taiwan is like a fifth column. You're not going to have 100% support when we step in to defend the Taiwanese. And Korea fell last night. We're going to get a live report from Ambassador Tan and Colonel Newsham and Mills. But this is a major strategic loss, particularly in the middle of this, and this puts Taiwan in jeopardy. This is one of the reasons that Pete Hegseth went to Singapore, and he said, hey, I think the invasion of Taiwan is imminent. This was on Saturday that caused such an explosion. So at the senior levels of government, they're very worried about this, and we're going to go in. I just don't think you can take a trip over there for a couple of days because the economy, there's certain elements of the Korean economy are doing quite well. And what you have is disaffected young people, because of the education system, are a lot like some of the young people here in the country you see on college campuses. This is how the CCP operates, and they're very smart at political warfare. In Korea, they didn't need bullets; they got it by ballots, and this is a wake-up call for everybody. Eric.
Yep, yes, sir. I just wanted to get you to weigh in on that. Appreciate your time, Steve Bannon.
Hold it. Hang on. You wanted to drop, folks. This is what we call a humble brag. He wanted to drop, I did, O'Reilly was the #1 rated show, and I was host 250 times.
That didn't cross my mind until you pointed out that
Rob Sig, I think, hey, we want to make sure Rob Sig's got his #2 pencil line right down, Eric Bolling star 250 times. So
yeah, you know why it's a #2 pencil? Because you can erase very well.
Bowling, we actually, I saw that live because that was after my Cuomo thing, and of course I said, we got to play it this morning, but my producer said, nah, we got other stuff we got to focus on. So thank you and Mad Dog for putting it up. I appreciate
You're more than welcome. Appreciate your time, Steve. I always learn something with you, brother. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Eric Bolling. Okay, so much is going on this afternoon. We are going to get to Korea, but we've got a very special guest, a major breaking story. We're going to play it right now in a cold open. I'm going to come back. Mark Caputo from Axios, a blockbuster story about Elon Musk and President Trump. Let's play the cold open. We're going to return in a moment.